Welcome to Career Coffee Chat Live. I'm your host, Aaron Urban. I am a certified executive coach and career accelerator, and what I do is I help you, emerging and evolving leaders, remove those pesky career roadblocks so you can achieve more income, impact, and influence. And today we'll be talking especially about the income part. In fact, how to consistently get great big figures with every salary and promotion. My special guest, Claudia Miller, today will talk about the $5,000 salary success secret and how you can get repeated big raises and promotions based on what? Well, we will find out. And as a matter of fact, when you do tune in today, please say hi, say your name, and say where you're from. Sometimes I can't see if you're tuning in from a different social media platform because we are live today on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And I'll be excited and happy to welcome you to the show as well as any questions you have. Just know that as you tune into the show, as you listen to our chat today about this very important topic, money, feel free to ask your questions during our conversation. And if you're watching the replay later, don't be shy. Put your comments or questions in the comments section, and we will get right back to you as soon as we can because we'll see those. Now, you know what? Some of you might be thinking, salary increase, $50,000. No way, lady, you're crazy. Not in this economy. Not true. In fact, interestingly, 36% of managers recently surveyed by Robert Half said they are more likely to negotiate salaries with new hires than they were a year ago. So, and another 50% said they're just as likely to. So don't let your concerns about the economic situation stop you from negotiating your salary. I'm really excited because Claudia will share her top tactics and tips to help you land big salary increases and promotions right on time. Now, a little bit about Claudia. Claudia Miller is on a mission to help others achieve their career goals. She has been featured on as Business Insider's top 23 most innovative career coaches of 2020. So let's give Claudia a big welcome to the Career Coffee Chat show. Great to see you, Claudia.
Great to see you too, Aaron.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to know about this. We've got lots of comments already, even before we started the live show. $50,000. I mean, who wants that? More money? What are we going to do with that stuff, right? So for those of you who are just tuning in, when you get on the live show, please say hi and say your name and ask any questions that you have. So Claudia, what got you started in doing this? I know you're on a mission to help people succeed and land those raises and not be shy about negotiating and getting themselves promoted. But what was the catalyst? What started all this for you?
Yeah, I mean, I started all of this because I consider myself an ambitious professional. So I wanted to figure out for myself, like, how do these people make $30, $40, $50 salary increases? How do they hit six figures, by the age of 25 or in their 20s? So I feel like I did everything by the book, what society tells us: go to school, be involved, participate, get good grades, volunteer, do internships. And I did all of that. And when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I had one interview and I had really good grades and everything. And of course, at the time, I had my friend write my resume, and she's not a resume writer. So now I can see why I only got one interview, but it became visible and apparent to me that just getting good grades, doing the internships, getting that experience wasn't going to be enough. I needed to figure out like the other side of what it means to really climb up the corporate ladder. So I then again started, on this quest of, working with career coaches, working with resume writers, buying courses on, how to get ahead in your career, how to get noticed and promoted. I read books on negotiation and how to sell yourself. And I mean, it took me about 2 to 3 years to do it. And I spent thousands of dollars, and I even reached out to those people featured on Business Insider, like how this 25-year-old is making over six figures, and I was able to network with them. And then finally, I was able to get that, at the time was $30,000 salary increase, and it was within a new industry. And then I did it again, another $30,000 salary increase in a new industry. And then I did it again. Clearly, it was apparent that I had a good structure, but I wanted to also see, does it work across various industries and levels of experience? Because at the time I was still very early in my career, but what about someone mid-career or late career? Will it work, for them? So I started, helping friends and then expanding it. And over time, every single time, the clients, were getting the same results, pivoting into new industries. They were able to get $30,000 to $50,000 salary increases. And it wasn't like it was confrontational. It's not like the alphas or very extroverted people. I've had clients that are consider themselves introverts. But we were able to create and follow this strategy that positioned them to be one of the top sought after candidates during the interview process, that it automatically, they got offered the higher end of that salary range. And then they just negotiated an extra 10 to 15K. But the employer didn't know that they just made like a $30,000 to $50,000 salary increase leap.
That's awesome. That's a great story. So I would like to know, based on your research, you mentioned there were some commonalities that you found among successful people, those people who seem to always land through promotion or get the success story. And from my research, when it comes to coaches, sometimes it's just a lucky break, but there's more to it than that, isn't there? Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So what I tell people is anytime you're doing anything, and this just applies not only just careers, but everything, even in business, is pull yourself away and just really look, what are most people doing? And when people start job searching, maybe they'll update their resume, they refresh it, and they'll go to job boards like LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, and then start looking through job boards. And if they see something, they start applying, they upload their resume, and then they pray they hear back. And if they don't hear, they just apply to more. So that's usually the average, what most people do. When it comes to interviewing, maybe you have a scheduled interview, then you'll look at the company website, the job description, maybe you'll look up the person on LinkedIn, and that's where it ends. So when it comes to research and really position yourself as, the top sought after candidate, there's a lot more research to that. And when I show clients is like how to make sure that we build a network within that company, even if you don't have one, how to start doing this so we can get company insights, understanding where the company's allocating resources, what are their biggest pain points, what is the hardest thing to hire for the role that they're currently hiring for. So when the time does come and my clients are interviewing, they've already done this research and they've at least have a 2 to 3 week leap or ahead of it, that by the time other candidates just can't compete with my clients because they've maybe practiced or worked on it 2-3 days before, whereas my clients have been doing this at least now for 3 weeks or so, and they're just, time isn't on their side at that point, while my clients have already been doing this upfront from the beginning. And again, it changes the conversation. My clients are at a whole nother level when it comes to interviewing, that automatically positions them to be the best fit for that role.
That's great. That's great. So would you say this would work for not just leaders? Would this work for someone who, let's just say they're, I don't know, going in for a mid-level role, not even in management? Does that work for these people too? What would you say to that?
Yeah, so I've worked with professionals in all areas, of expertise in their professional careers, with like recent graduates that are trying to find their next role, and maybe they want to go into like that Google, Amazon, Facebook, Instagram. It works for them, as well as other professions that are looking to break into that first management role or that first director role. And then really like all levels and across various industries, because I've worked with clients within finance, technology, e-commerce, retail, different types of technology, sales, and you name it. But because at the end of the day, we're always dealing with people. And the computer system, the ATS, applicant tracking system. I mean, you're dealing with that and people. So work with, as long as it is, even if it's different industries, the same process applies, because again, you're working with people, and we identify like what are those needs that the company and or department have, and where is the company looking to go in the next 3, 6, 12 months. And then we follow that formula. So that way, again, once it comes to the interview process, everything is stacked up in your favor, that automatically you're more of like, unless you're competing with another one of my clients that might be going after the same role. But a lot of people just don't do that level of research. They rather just apply. And instead, I teach my clients to be more intentional and make sure that the companies are applying for are the right companies. Because one thing I've seen is, especially for like job seekers out there. They trade one bad company for another.
Oh,
They are at a toxic company. They don't have enough resources. They're being overworked. They're being underpaid. There's no promotions. There's no salary increases. There's a bonus freeze and all these other things. And they're like, I need to get out of here. This toxic work environment. I need to see another job. They find another job and they find themselves in the
and then
same
right
environment.
back to the same thing, right? From the frying pan into the fire happens a lot, particularly if we're not positioning ourselves differently. Oftentimes we talk about the same thing. We just polish off our resume, talk about everything we used to do in the context of we used to do it, and get more of the same, unfortunately. So do you advocate? Because there's several different schools of thought. Some people are like, oh, don't bother applying online, just go directly to the source, leverage your network, or apply directly to hiring managers, circumvent the hiring process, go directly to the hiring manager. Or do you recommend going through online applications and following that process? What is your thought about that?
Yeah. So with my clients, I have them do like a 3-prong approach. One is optimizing and really updating their LinkedIn. So that way, when hiring managers or recruiters are looking for talent like theirs, they're able to be found and they come up in the first 1 or 2 page search. So that way recruiters are funneling in and they're able to contact and identify them and just find them overall. The second approach is applying to job boards. If they see a role that they're really excited about and this is a company that they've always had in their purview and are always wanted to work there, I'm not going to stop them from applying. Like, go ahead and apply. And the third one is being more intentional. So what are those companies? Let's start networking. And if you don't have a network, let's start building that network so that way you can get kind of like a faster access or speed up the hiring process, because at least I try to keep a good pulse with recruiters and hiring managers. And I ask them, what do you prefer? What would make it so easy for you to at least start interviewing and hire someone? And one of the things that I hear from, HR people / recruiters is, I don't like when people reach out to me and they haven't applied, or they've applied and they said, hey, I applied 5 minutes ago, let's talk. And they're like, wait, hold on. Can you at least apply? Can you give me a little bit of time to review the application? So what I do is, one, I either show my clients how to build a network so they can be referred into that company and it kind of fast tracks that process. Or two, go on LinkedIn. And if you know who the recruiter is, go on their LinkedIn profile and see their activity. If you don't know, just look up the company name, look up talent acquisition or a human resources coordinator representative on LinkedIn for that company, and then start going through profiles and look at their activity. Some of them are saying on their LinkedIn profile, hey, I'm hiring for a project manager here at blank company. If you are interested or know someone that is, please share this comment or feel free to private message me. Now, all of a sudden I can say, here, saw your LinkedIn post. I saw you're hiring for a project manager. I'm very interested in this role. Do you have a quick 20, 30 minutes sometime this week or the following week for Thursday or Friday? I would love to learn more about the role. I've also attached my resume here for reference. Let me know what time and day works best for you. And that way it's a little bit more intimate because they asked you to reach out to them and then you're reaching out and saying, hey, saw your post. And that's a more organic approach. Or just applying through like the job board, preferably getting referred, and then reaching out to them 3 to 4 days later saying, hey, Erin, just wanted to let you know that I did apply for your project manager role. Here's the rec ID number. Wanted to see if you have 20, 30 minutes available. I'm really interested in this role. I went ahead and applied 3-4 days ago. I've also attached my resume for your convenience. Let me know this time works, what times work best for you. Here's some of my upcoming availability. I look forward to our conversation. But give them a few days so that way they can say, oh, well, Erin applied 4 days ago. They must be already in the system because you offered the rec ID number. They can pull you up and see your resume, your application. Do you meet the qualifications? And they'll say, hey, Erin, yes, that works, because you want to make their job easy.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game.
they juggle so much. And I hear complaints like, they never follow up. Understood. And there's some others that are better at following up and managing it. But kind of keeping in perspective that on average, human resources and recruiters are hiring anywhere between 40 to 75 roles. And for each role, there's an average anywhere between 250 applicants. And that's like pre-COVID. Right now, the average is like 400 to 600. So it's a lot of projects to be managing. So when you make their life easier and you have the qualifications and your resume matches your LinkedIn and there's no red flags, they're more than happy to bring you through the interview process, because that's one less interview slot they have to worry about, and they can continue moving into the other roles as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such great advice, because you're correct. We hear that, oh, well, we need to follow up right away. Well, yes, that's true in the interview. Absolutely. You should follow up with a thank you note right away. Absolutely. However, when you're just sending in your application, following up in the next 5 minutes, maybe a bit premature, because we forget that they have a day job too, and they're managing a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of people messaging them, and not taking it personal if you don't hear back. It's not you. They have a lot on their plate.
Exactly.
But you're absolutely correct. Be more proactive. Going to the company website, you can search by the company name, you can drill down by position title, and say, hey, let's see what they're posting. And they do. Talent acquisition, hiring managers, internal HR coordinators, they post. And recruiters, by the way, also post, we're hiring for blah, blah, blah position. It may not be relevant to you. If it's not, what you can do is, you may know someone. Oh, Tracy's looking and should be perfect fit. Comment on the post. This will be a perfect fit for Tracy. She's awesome, tag her. You're making their job easier. Might remember when a more relevant role for you comes up later. And that's a good tactic to use with recruiters too. That's how to become their friend. When you refer great candidates to them, they love you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your thought about, reaching out to the hiring manager directly? How do you feel about that?
So I've heard, and I work with hiring managers, and I've talked to them as well. And one of the things is they don't like that, because that's why they have the vetting process. That's why they have the HR person filter that out. So that way, by the time it gets to them, it's like the top 5, 6 candidates. Now, that's if you don't establish a relationship. Now, I always say, like, you want to be intentional. So if let's just say you had, and we're just going to say Acme company, you really want to work at Acme company, you did your research, you understand like where they're looking to allocate their resources, how do they perform in their last fiscal year, and you are really interested on learning more about it. It could be more of, and maybe they don't have a job posting yet, can reach out to them and say, hey, Erin, I noticed that you work at Acme company. You actually used to work at, Pepsi. That's where I currently work at. And I'm really interested in pivoting into, Acme organization. And I know that you used to be a project manager. I will love your expertise and insights. I'm looking to make that pivot and change as well, and specifically go into project management, kind of like similar to what your career trajectory has been. Would you be open to getting on a quick 20, 30-minute call? Also, I'd be more than happy to email you my questions in case, you're too busy. I look forward to hearing from you. And just reaching out to them kind of like just to learn, and really, instead of asking them like, hey, hire me, or are you hiring?
We have a job.
Exactly. They can say, oh, yeah, this person did their research. They reached out to me. They're generally interested. They looked at my background. I might be able to help. So let's get on a call, and, I'll ask questions. And then what organically happens is, if you already done your research and, have learned how to rebrand and personalize yourself, then all of a sudden that person might say, well, Erin, you sound like you be great. I actually don't even have a job posting yet, but I am going to have it next month. I'll have the rec available. Why don't you send over your resume to me, and I can review it, and maybe we can schedule a call a little bit more formal. And then I'll send over your paperwork to the HR person that can start working things out. That can happen. And I've had clients, yeah, or they'll say, hey, Erin, why don't I connect you to my colleague? I'm not hiring at the moment, but they are. And I think you'd be a really great fit. Why don't you send over your resume to me and I'll forward it to them and they'll be in contact with you. So now that's a different approach. Instead of you coming in as like, do you want to hire me? Like, what do you like, give me that job, because they at that point they're busy. So that's the only approach that I've seen effectively with potential hiring managers that has been successful.
And that's really about building the network and letting that network then work for you. And here's the great thing about what you shared. You're not only saying, hey, I care about you. I invested time and learn more about you, individual that I'm reaching out to. So, and here's the deal. I'm also sharing what I want to do, what my goals are, and being specific. The worst thing we can do is reach out to somebody just cold and not have a reason. There needs to be a compelling reason. And we have to have that personal element, because if we don't, let's say it's very self-serving, well, they have absolutely no incentive to follow through on that conversation. And also know that some people don't check their LinkedIn if you're reaching out via LinkedIn, so don't take it personal. That does happen.
I actually, and just a really quick note to kind of people like, oh, people don't respond to me on LinkedIn. I actually just had a call with a client yesterday, and I was like, look, you need to update your LinkedIn. It needs to rebrand. And she's like, honestly, I don't even know my login. I created this about 7-8 years ago when I was job searching then. I've been in my role for 8 years. So I need to figure out what my login is. And they haven't. So if you don't reach out, people just are not as active on LinkedIn. Like, I'm very active. Erin, you're very active. But there are people out there that don't log into LinkedIn unless they're forced by their company to create more engagement, or they're job searching, or they're trying to be a little bit more like a thought leader. Maybe now they're starting to, but they don't. My husband probably doesn't check his LinkedIn as often as I do. So don't take it personal. Yeah.
Mine has recruiters reach out to him. He's that guy. They'll reach out to him, oh, we have this great job. And he's like, yeah. You need to be building a relationship with these individuals, because if they have a great job, you also are top in reliability engineering. Other reliability engineers that might be able to refer. I mean, there's strategies here. And if you're smart and you're a smart, savvy professional, you will always be on LinkedIn, because here's the deal. #future of work. We need to be the entrepreneurs of our careers.
Yeah.
And it is no longer where we can just be complacent and say, oh, well, LinkedIn's for when I'm job searching, or if I really have to, I'll look on LinkedIn. No, it's something that we need to be continually investing our time in, along with your network. Because as you just so clearly pointed out, Claudia, it takes some time and it takes intentional effort. And wouldn't it be great if you were doing this all the time, way in advance, if you ever needing, let's say you're perfectly happy. I'm thrilled with where I work. I love my work. Well, stuff happens.
Yeah, it does.
There's no guarantees in life. The only constant in life is change. So with that in mind, we need to be 1 step or 5 or 10 or 15 steps ahead of the game. So your network is giving you opportunities before you need them, right? Exactly. That's an ideal world. So hopefully your clients, after working with you through this, light bulb kind of goes off and they go, I need to do this constantly.
Yeah.
Not just when I'm job seeking, right?
Yeah. And I think 2020 was a perfect example of that, where some people felt very comfortable and secure in the roles and companies, and all of a sudden roles were wiped out, people were laid off, companies couldn't make it towards the next payroll the following month because their business was completely shut down. So when you invest in that brand, professional development, especially leveraging LinkedIn, all of a sudden you're able to get job offers or connections, and being asked to be speaking engagements, position you as a leader, a thought leader, that can generate and be able to help you command more in salary and promotions as well.
Absolutely. And if you're interested in Claudia's job search Kickstarter program, that's down the bottom here in the banner that's going down the bottom of your screen. And, what's interesting is you mentioned influencer. I think, well, most people attach a lot of significance to that word. So let's
Okay.
back it up a little bit and then think about in terms of if that's uncomfortable for you, because not everybody feels comfortable with that term, influencers. I mean, I have to blog, I have to have a podcast, a live show like Aaron. What do I have to do? No, you don't do any of those things. What we're talking about here is an industry thought leader, right? And you are a known quantity within your industry or profession. So if you desire that, and you should desire that, you definitely should be looking to do that, particularly if you want to be the entrepreneur of your career. Then understanding, okay, authentically, based on my style, what works for me? Do I like to write? Am I comfortable speaking? Do I want to have, some videos or top tips? Or am I just one of those people who I prefer to share top article, trending news, and then have my take on it and ask questions to encourage engagement? Perhaps I would like to, I don't know, author a workshop or lead a workshop at one of my professional organizations. These are small things you can do to start building your influence within your industry or profession that pays off in dividends later on down the road and shortens that time frame, because when you're doing that reach out to Acme Company and you're saying, hey, I need to build my network within this company, maybe someone has already heard of you or your second degree connection facilitates that. It happens a lot faster. So, yeah. So, what are the top things? Let's see. We have a question here from Bessie, Bess Kane. Sorry, not Bess, not Bessie. Sorry, Bess. Let me get over there. She says, what do you say to a recruiter who reaches out to you about a job and doesn't meet your requirements? Do you turn it down politely but still initiate a relationship with a recruiter? Yes, you are on point, Bess. You are on point. So you definitely want to nurture a relationship with that recruiter. And I bet, Claudia, you have some insights there.
Yeah. Can you repeat that question? Was it about if you don't match the job requirements? Well, one of the things I would do is to make sure of like what is exactly like have a conversation with them, because what I've seen like based on the data, and there's actually a stat that it said that around 61% of professionals who were hired said that what they're currently doing does not match the job description. And things are very different. So what is the job description? Because sometimes people will create a generic job description template, and because it's such a like a red tape of like even making a small update, so they'll say, let's just post what we have on file. Once we interview, then we'll tailor to what we really need. Or it could be like, this is what we would want, like our kind of like dream candidate, but we're willing to teach certain aspects of it. So if I were to see a posting and I say, okay, I match about 40% of the job posting, now let me go ahead and apply. Now, of course, this does not apply if you are don't have a medical degree and you're applying to be a doctor. Not going to happen. But for most roles that are not like law degree where you need those certifications and licenses, you can look into it and say, hey, by the way, one of the things I saw in the job description is for this project management role is it sounds like they're looking for someone that can speak to non-technical teams and technical teams and be able to create a project management around it and be able to deliver on time within budget. I saw that it requires a PMP. I don't have a PMP at the time, but I do have experience in managing multiple projects. I've been doing this for 3 years. I've worked with projects with budgets of over $5 million. And I've worked with the biggest team I've worked in is with 300 people domestically and internationally. Will that still qualify for the role because I'm able to touch and be able to have expertise on these things? However, I don't necessarily have on that. How much like is that going to make a big difference? Because then they can advocate for you and say, hey, this person has a great background, education, expertise. They actually have the thing you said was the hardest to hire for. This person has it. And you mentioned, employer, that you're looking to expand into your international offices as well, this person has those qualifications and they can vouch for you. And then the employer can say, yes, no, maybe let's talk about it. And kind of like almost a negotiation. And if
Mhm.
they say like, no, you need to have everything, then at least you're advocating for themselves, because what happens is the employer would say, hey, I need all these things. And then they find out that they don't have any candidates that actually fit everything.
I
Then
see
they'll
that a
say, yes.
lot.
And then they'll say, okay. So like, for example, I mean, some of those job postings will say entry level, 5 years experience with a master's degree. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And
And
you're,
5
yeah,
certifications.
and
Yeah.
you're paying entry level salary. How possible is that? So then they'll say, okay, do we need to drop down our requirement? And all of a sudden, you can be in that top of mind. Or actually, you mentioned about this candidate that had all of these things. We want to have a conversation with them again. Let's bring them in for the interview. But again, you want to have that conversation so you understand really what's non-negotiable and what is negotiable based on the job posting.
Right. So Bess has clarified a little bit. She said that, uh, sorry, she said, I meant to say their job requirements don't meet my personal expectations. And she would be a little overqualified. So in those cases where
Okay.
you know that it doesn't meet your personal requirements, it's just not fitting your bandwidth, how do you handle that? Because you still want to have a rapport with the recruiter and maybe be considered for other opportunities and
Yes.
develop that network. So my best suggestion, I'd love to hear what you have to say as well, Claudia, is if it just absolutely doesn't fit, it's not a good fit, it's not going to work at all, then you definitely probably want to say, okay, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you reaching out. I have a potential great candidate for you. If you're interested, I'd love to make that introduction. That would be a good fit. Please keep me in mind for other opportunities. This is what my focus really is. And then share a little bit more about what your focus is and where you want to show up in the workspace, and to help that recruiter help you. And you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of thing. Claudia,
Yeah.
what do you think about that? Is that on point? Or you have anything to add?
Yes, I would definitely refer someone if you do have someone in mind. But I would also get on a conversation with them, because what I've seen is like some of my clients kind of been in similar situations, and they'll say, hey, can we get on a call? I would love to discuss more about the role. What is the department company really trying to do? Because at times companies or the hiring manager doesn't know. They think they need, maybe like a manager, but based on what they're trying to achieve, that's more of a director level position.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll say, oh, okay, I understand. So you're looking for someone that can do this, and you need to hire someone else to manage both divisions. Okay. Well,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I'm really looking for is, I'm really looking for a director level job, and I actually have experience in both. So ideally, my ideal situation would be like I would become director and I manage both teams, and I can oversee this. And I do have experience in both operations and supply chain management. And I already have relationships with vendors as well as, potential markets that we're trying to like break into, and kind of like advocate for yourself. At this time, based on what I see or read in the job description and what we discussed, it is not a good fit. But if you are looking for someone at a director level or to oversee both departments, I'd be more than happy, to discuss this with the hiring manager and see, if there's something we can work out. Because a few of my clients, and one of them recently had this conversation where he was overqualified, and then they actually came back and said, actually, why don't you manage both departments? We'll make you director level, and we're able to fit your salary range, because now we're not hiring two people, we're hiring one, and we just combine that salary within our budget. And that way, would you be interested then? And because he discussed the salary qualifications, they're like, actually, yes, now I'm interested. Like, let's
That's
start the
great.
process. And
Yeah.
that was able to happen.
Yeah. What I'm hearing here clearly is you need to have the conversation, because it's true. Like, you can't say everything in your resume, nor can everything fit into the job description. So it's a great idea to have that conversation and understand, okay, what are their pain points? What do they actually need? And you're on point, Claudia, because sometimes they don't know. Like, they have a pain, but they're really not sure how to articulate what they need to solve it, right? And get their business going. Now, let's see. Radhika shared, she said, I'm currently working on a temp to hire job. It's been a very challenging job, but I like it a lot. How do I negotiate salary when I'm not feeling confident about my own performance? In other words, I've not received any negative feedback, but my lack of confidence is maybe internal. How do I, sounds like she's got some internal mindset blocks there she needs to get past. So what's your advice for her, Claudia?
Yeah. So one thing I would recommend is to start creating like an achievement portfolio.
Mhm.
So, at times we can only remember what we done maybe 1, 2, maybe a month ago. Honestly, I probably don't even know what I did last week. I would have to check my calendar. But start documenting everything that you do, like all the projects that you've worked on. I don't know what kind of work you do, but if you're in marketing, like what do you kind of recollect and you figure out like what did engagement or followers did it look like before and how much is it there? What kind of campaigns have you run? Have you been able to penetrate a new segmentation, a customer segmentation that they weren't able to do so? Have sales increased since you've been there? And really start documenting every single project and work that you've done, and also have a conversation with the manager. Can you tell me the metrics or how is success being measured in order to consider myself for a full-time role as an employee? Because at times it's very vague. They'll say, as long as you perform well. Well, what do you mean by that? What are some of the
Mhm.
success metrics? Okay, what would you consider to be a good performance? Again, if you're a marketing manager, are you looking for a 10% engagement increase? Are you looking for 30% engagement increase? A 15% engagement increase? And also look at the historical trends. Historically, they say, well, we're looking for an 80% engagement increase. Okay. Could you tell me a little bit more about that? Is it for all social medias or is it one specific outlet? Also, historically speaking, you've only had up to a 5% engagement increase. So getting to an 85 seems to be a little bit like a wide range. So can we, discuss this a little bit more? Because it seems like right now we could get to 85% engagement rate, but I would need the following A, B, and C resources. Would you be able to provide me, with those resources needed to get there? Oh no, we have to stay within budget. Okay, so it seems like based on the budget and resources we currently have, I can get up to, based off of that, maybe a 10-15% engagement increase when historically it's been 5. Will that be sufficient enough for
Mhm.
me, to get that? So start having these, just don't let them tell you metrics. And then all of a sudden they've never even as a company ever met anything close to those metrics and there's no budget for it. So at that point, they're setting you up to fail. So start having those conversations to
That's
see.
really important. Yeah. And
Yeah.
even when you go and when you're interviewing,
Yes.
try to understand what their expectation of performance is. What is their metric? What really matters to them? And one of my favorite questions to ask of the hiring manager or the person you'll be reporting to is, what is your idea of performance excellence for this role? And then listen to the words they choose. Is
Mhm.
it a sweatshop? Is it, where are they going with this? And then drill down from there. So, but you're absolutely on point, Claudia. I always recommend that everybody have an accomplishments inventory or know their career contributions. Have a
Mhm.
very clear idea of what the pain point is you're solving. And what was the before state before you started working on whatever it was, a project or improvement, or maybe you just made something better in the lifespan of your role. Have an idea of what it was before that, and then what did you do, just really high level. You don't have to go and write a biography, but a high level, and keep in mind things are important like budgets, time frame, key stakeholders, any sort of problems that came up. How did you resolve those roadblocks you overcame? And most importantly, why did it matter? What was the outcome? What was the impact of what you did? This is gold when it comes to performance reviews, asking for a raise, a promotion. Oftentimes, you need a business case included with your promotion, and having your career accomplishments to back that up, and new jobs.
Yeah.
So, talk about that. Let's see. Beth said, she said, Coach E, you lead me to another question about my branding. I use Bess, however, everybody still calls me Bessie. It's true, it was on some of her branding. Just use my natural name, Bessie, on everything, i.e., resume? Good question. Okay, so what are you most comfortable with? Claudia, what do you think about that? Best or
Um,
Bessie?
yeah. So, I mean, I would, in your resume, I would put your actual name, but you could put like uh, Betsy, quotations, Bessie, and then your last name. And
Mm-hmm.
then have it on your LinkedIn profile as well. So that way people know like what to call you. And everyone doesn't always go by like their, official name, but officially a resume is still considered for a job role. So you don't want to provide your nicknames or what you would like to be called. That's why I like to say your full name and then in the middle with quotations of like what you would like to be called, because it's still a professional document that is being used for the hiring process, and it's going to be used in a database. So you want to make sure you still have your legal name, but you can still include like what you want to be called in quotations in there. So, they know that they can call you Bessie if that's what you prefer to be called.
Right. If that's what you prefer to be called, but don't. And also know that you can have as Bess and then say during the conversation, feel free to call me Bessie. That's, what I prefer people to call me. Let's just say you are Richard, but you go by Rich. Just use Rich on everything. It's okay. Your resume is not a legal document. Those details can be figured out later when they're starting to do background checks. Just make sure they have your legal name. But your resume and your LinkedIn profile are neither one are legal documents. So long as that makes sense, good for you, whatever you're comfortable with. Now, I do know that some people think, their nickname or what they prefer to be called as is too informal. And if you feel like it's too informal, then just adjust appropriately and do what's authentic and true for you, right?
Yeah.
So before we wrap up the show, and we have lots of great contents and comments coming in, I really want to thank Radhika and Bessie and Dr. Suresh for tuning in and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. If you do have any other questions before we wrap up the show, feel free to pop them in the comments in the chat. And if you're watching the replay later, of course, feel free to pop any questions in you have. We'll get back to you. But I do have another question for you, Claudia.
Okay.
This is all great material, by the way, it's gold. So anybody tuning in, you start taking notes seriously and watch the replay and take notes if you haven't taken notes yet. It's all really, really important information. What is the biggest thing people do to sabotage themselves, though, in this process? What do you see?
They get in their head too much. They think very negatively. So they'll start the job search process with, this is what I want. And they, like, I always like have my clients create like almost a parameter sheet. Like, what do you need? If you want to make a job, let's just say you're like making 80,000 and you want a job making over 6 figures, and you want to work remote, then don't apply to jobs that don't pay 6 figures and are in-house. Like, yeah, you have to go into the office. You're setting up yourself for failure. So just focus on that. So every time you start a job search, look at your parameters. What is it that you want? Then start the job search. And then also have like an achievements list to kind of remind you like all the work that you've done. Because as time goes on, you're going to start saying, well, maybe I should just be grateful that I have a job. People are unemployed. I should just be happy at the moment. Or maybe it's not as bad as I think it is. And then you'll have a bad day and you're like, I need to leave here. Can I quit? And then maybe it'll kind of slow down a bit. And again, you're going to start getting to that thought. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. Maybe I'm not getting interviews because it's so competitive. Maybe I need to learn more skill sets. Maybe I need more certifications. Maybe I need to go back and get my degree. And then you start getting into your head so much. Instead, pull yourself away. If I'm not getting results, what is it? And if I don't know, let me talk to a professional like Erin or Claudia and let them figure out like, do I need a resume writing? Oh, if I need a resume, all of a sudden I get interviews, great. Or maybe I'm getting interviews, but I'm not getting job offers. Well, you probably need help with your interview coaching skills. But don't always assume that it's you or that it's not good enough. There's more than enough jobs out there. There are industries and companies that are thriving at the moment. You can get a salary increase. And I always get asked, well, how do I know I'm in the power to negotiate my salary? If you're employed or getting a job offer, you're in the power of negotiation.
You're always in the power of negotiation. Yeah. Absolutely. In fact, it's interesting. I have a statistic here. Now, this has been some years ago, but it's still very, very true. Negotiation is not only critically important, but it's hugely underutilized because Linda Babcock shared in her study for her book, Women Don't Ask, she shared that around about 7% of women attempted to negotiate, while only 57% of men did. Now, yes, clearly women, we do tend to go, oh, well, I'm grateful I have a job, and we tend to take the back seat, and we tend to be a little bit too grateful and not aggressive enough when it comes to negotiation. But men also need to do a better job at negotiating. And like I said before, when we started off the Career Coffee Chat show, The socioeconomic challenges we have right now are notwithstanding. In fact, employers are just as or even more willing to negotiate for new hires. And also, if you're in a job and you're like, I really want to get promoted or really need a salary raise, leverage the tools and tactics Claudia shared with us today. Get your accomplishments in order, get your kudos file, talk about what value you brought to the organization. And if you're thinking about a promotion, bring your business case. What value will you add in that new role, along with your contributions and accomplishments? So it's always a pleasure. Claudia, do you have any last minute tips, wisdom, insight before we wrap up the Career Coffee Chat show today?
No, thanks again for having me. And like I said, negotiation, I'm a big advocate for it. It's kind of like to what you mentioned, Erin. As we know, women get paid 72 cents on the dollar. So that's why it's even more important to negotiate. But even then, like Latina women or Hispanic women get paid like 52 cents on the dollar. African-American women get paid like 62 cents on the dollar. So it's even more important for us women and just overall everyone to negotiate and just make it an expectation. You get a job offer, it's time to negotiate salary. It's not, should I do it? It's, I must do it. Even if they offer you way more than you anticipated, there's still money on the table. Ask for it. Whether it's a sign up, or the professional stipend. If you want to get that certification that's expensive, ask for the professional development stipend and get that. But always ask, especially because you probably have not asked from your previous roles. It's time to make up for that, those times, and start getting paid what you're worth and get that salary increase for yourself.
Well, it's been a huge pleasure having you on the show, Claudia. It's been so much fun talking to you, and I know that everybody tuning in has learned a lot. It's been great to talk to you. Also great to have all of you who tuned into the Career Coffee Chat show today. If you're watching the replay later, like I mentioned before, please don't hesitate or be shy to put your questions in the comments. We'll be happy to get back to you. Don't forget the Career Coffee Chat podcast as well, available on all the major channels. Spotify, iTunes, Google, you name it, it's out there. So check out Claudia on LinkedIn, connect with her, and of course at her website. And that is, again, Claudia, your website is claudiamiller.com.
ClaudiaTMiller.com. So T as in Tom, ClaudiaTMiller.com.
Awesome. All right, check her out. And for all of you, keep thriving and keep elevating. Until next time.